Hello and welcome. It's Jess here. In this video, we are going to finally complete the last 8 prompts of this month's series. And if you're new to the channel, I've put together this positive prompt list for the month of October, and I've been doing one illustration every single day. This video is part 6 of the whole series of videos, so just in case you've missed them, you can catch up with all the links in the description. I share my thought process along with the painting process with each piece, and I can't believe we're up to the last 8 prompts, and I'm really excited to finish this sketchbook together. And with that, let's begin painting with day number 24, and the prompt for today is violet. For this painting, I chose to paint some African violets along with a little portrait as if she's kind of blooming from the top. And I've mentioned this in previous videos, but for every single piece that I did this month, I really wanted to focus on putting meaning into each illustration. Every word that I chose throughout the prompt list, every color choice that I did this month, it all had a purpose and it all had a meaning of its own. With every subject that I chose to paint, I made sure to spend some time doing research on their symbolism, and generally when I was choosing the words to include in the prompt list, I wanted the words to symbolize positivity and just evoke some sort of happiness. And I set some serious goals to make sure I record all of the footage to be able to share that happiness with you guys. So if you've been part of the challenge and following along the videos so far, I really hope that you have been enjoying them. While painting, I learned that the African violets have a meaning of feminine energy, and these plants will fill your house with joy and love. They are my mother's favorite plants, which is where I got the inspiration from, and here's the finished result. I'm placing a protective sheet of watercolor paper beside it, and now let's move on to day number 25, which is turtle. I often get asked where I get my ideas from, and I guess sometimes they sort of just pop into my head. But with this illustration, I had this idea of a bunch of yogi turtles doing yoga and balancing on top of one another. I have a little sculpture in my house of a family of turtles, and I wanted to put my own little stylistic approach to it. And I find turtles to be super sweet, and I wanted to communicate that with their gestures, how they're all looking up and smiling. And simply, they're just all together in full harmony. For their shells, I'm using a wet-on-wet technique with a limited color palette of greens, browns, and yellows. And I have to say this piece was a lot of fun and definitely made me smile. I've mentioned that I've been into meditation and yoga, so bringing these elements into my art, I noticed to be a really great way to take it all in. Here are the completed yogi turtles balancing on the rocks. I love their little arms and how they're stretching out and smiling. I think these will make awesome prints and I'm really excited for the Super Shop update. What do you think of these little guys? I hope you're smiling as much as I am. For the next prompt of day number 26 is book. I've had this idea for quite some time of making a book house filled with books and made out of books, and I wasn't quite sure on how to execute it, which is why I was drawing it out on my iPad digitally. Sometimes I like to plan my sketches here so that I can get the proper placement. Here I was just trying out different positions of my character that I had sitting at the top of the house. I tried some laying down positions and sitting up positions, and I felt that this one communicated what I wanted to say best. I also wanted to share some more rough sketches with you, and since things got pretty hectic completing a full painting every single day, it was quite refreshing to focus on just building up a sketch, and I definitely hope to turn this into a painting in the future. Once the sketch was finished on my iPad, I also printed it out on a sheet of paper and pasted it into my sketchbook, just so that I can have it in there and also see the sketch to size. For this prompt, I decided to do it all in graphite and then experiment with some watercolor, which you'll see in a bit. But I guess I realized I really missed drawing and creating beautiful sketches. This really brought some beautiful memories back since my first drawings were really rendered graphite drawings. I wanted the position to be super grand, and then I also had the idea to turn him into a unicorn. And after doing some research, I learned that unicorns are mythological creatures resembling horses. So I thought, why not experiment with that concept? And I also thought, why not experiment with some watercolor as toned on top of the pencil and then also add ink? Sometimes you gotta take a risk to find out new possibilities. For the next prompt, which is Earth, I decided to further experiment with my crayon technique that I mentioned in one of my videos. There I shared my art that I did when I was 5 or 6 years old, and one of the first techniques that I've ever learned was to play around with crayons, and I wanted to revisit the technique in this piece. I actually wanted to finish the challenge with as much experimentation as possible and really push the style, push the choices that I make. So what better way to do it than bring back some crayons? So what I first did was just make a mess and make any lines that I wish, and then voila, the magic happens when you put some watercolor on top. Since the crayons are wax-based, they actually resist the watercolor, leaving you with some beautiful texture and patterns from underneath. As you create, you may not always like what you create per se, but it's important to stay positive and find your way around it and see how you can make it work. I didn't necessarily like the crayons at the bottom, but I really loved the way that it looked on the earth itself. So I just went with a thicker background and more opaque colors so that I can add some typography, which I really enjoyed experimenting with, and decided to keep a contrast with the texture on the earth and then some more opaque colors for the background. Sometimes one aspect, and I don't like to call it mistakes, but aspects that help you make a decision on something else lead to even better results, which is why it's super important not to get discouraged. For this next painting, I wanted to play around with the concept of finding your light from within, and I chose a really dark contrast background so that I can really play around with the glow of the light. As I mentioned, I wanted the last few prompts to be pushing myself outside of my comfort zone with some new experiments, so I pushed myself in a completely different direction and tried to make a piece resembling a mosaic. I found this to be extremely fun, yet also challenging, since I had to find all the different shapes that a mosaic would actually include. And as you guys know from my previous videos, I love playing around with different shapes and sort of different elements. So this was definitely super interesting to incorporate as well. I wanted the dragonfly to be centered and for there to be a border all the way around, as you see in typical mosaics. And then I added 2 flowers at the very bottom to sort of frame the whole thing. So I was definitely figuring out along the way how I can make it resemble a mosaic, but I found that what worked best was to begin with some brush strokes and then go in with my liner in black. And while I was drawing, I learned that this was like unraveling a puzzle, and I love puzzles, so perhaps I'll have to try myself a real mosaic one day. The last day already? I can't believe how fast time flew and how this is the last page of the sketchbook. I chose the last word to be reflection and chose to interpret the piece as self-reflection. I find this super crucial to take some time and reflect on where and how far you've come. Taking a moment and spending some time with your own thoughts and feelings, assessing your goals, can not only help you get to know yourself better, but it can also help your mind stream yourself in the right direction. With this piece, I wanted to include a lot of detailed elements along with questions that I add in the background, and these questions are ones that you can ask yourself, which will help with self-reflection. And as I'm finishing my sketchbook and this incredible challenge, I'm also taking the time to do some self-reflection, taking a step back to see how far I've come. And that is the last prompt and last page of the sketchbook. Wow, what a feeling. Before I do a recap of this week's prompts, I want to take a moment and give you guys a spotlight. For everybody who has posted on the JESSTOBER hashtag, I want to congratulate you as well on all the work that you've shared. I opened up this challenge to you all so that you can make new connections, try out new experiments, stay creative, and of course, get to know yourself as an artist a little better. We're all on our own path, but I wanted us to do this all together so that we have each other's support. Huge shout out to all of my Patreons for sharing their work in our private Discord and for everyone giving each other uplifting feedback. I continue to strive to grow a positive art community, and I'm super grateful for all your support. I definitely recommend checking out the JESSTOBER21 hashtag. There are so many incredible artists to find, and it's super exquisite to see how everybody interpreted each prompt differently. I also asked you guys over on my Instagram on what you've learned just to see some feedback, so enjoy reading through a few responses I received before I do the final flip through of this week's paintings in my sketchbook. Another very sentimental time of finishing another sketchbook, another journey. I finished this one in 1 month. I will be doing a full sketchbook tour in the next video, so stay tuned for that. And I'm also going to be working on a huge shop update for everyone who's been asking for prints and stickers of all the prompts that I've created this month. Thank you so much for watching and following along. Stay creative and stay positive, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!